Hi, my name is Al Getler, and welcome to another episode of Leader Be Led. You know, we've brought you so many leaders from so many different areas, leaders of people, leaders in technology, leaders in social media, and we've brought you leaders in entrepreneurship and leaders in folks who really have new ideas for the new age that we are currently in. And so today, I am really happy to have someone on the show who has put together what is a Bible for folks who are looking to break out and do things in this new age and in the capabilities that technology gives us. Well, my guest today is someone named Pamela Slim, and she has written a book that I think you're going to find fascinating in the current age and fascinating to hear about what she is doing to bring her message out. So let's have Pamela join us. Hi, Pam. How are you?
I am great. Thanks for having me.
Well, I am thrilled you're here. Now, if I have it right, we're talking to you and you are in Arizona. Is that correct?
That is very correct.
Well, I'm here just north of Boston and the sun is shining and it's about 78 degrees. What's it like there?
It's just a cool, nippy 95, I think, right about now.
Well, better you than me. Better you than me. So, Pam, everywhere I look, I'm finding Pamela Slim all over the place. Your book is popping up in lots of places. You did a run on Creative Live a few weeks ago that was very, very popular. There are really lots of things happening with you, and now folks are probably curious, who is this Pamela Slim and where did she come from? So can you give us your story a bit of your background and how you arrived to where you are today?
Certainly. Yeah, I actually am originally from the San Francisco Bay Area, which is where I grew up. And I've always had a fascination with the world of work and how it is that people work. So within my professional career, I was in nonprofit sector for a while, in non-formal adult education, and then I made my way into corporate training and development. I was the director of training at Barclays Global Investors in San Francisco. And from there, I jumped ship. I turned 30. This was quite a few years ago, we'll say almost 17 years ago. And I turned 30 and really wanted to do something different. And that's when I started consulting. And so being in the Bay Area and Silicon Valley, this was 1996, I did a lot of work with high-tech companies, Cisco Systems and 3Com and Hewlett-Packard, and ended up working with hundreds of companies over the course of about 10 years, working on the human side of business. So helping to grow teams and develop and help managers learn how to manage other people. And through this experience, I really loved it. I love working inside companies. It was a really fun kinds of projects. But I noticed that there were always people who would pull me aside. And interestingly enough, sometimes it was the manager or VP who hired me to come in and work with their team. And they would say, "How did you work for yourself? Like, I really want to do it, but it seems very scary." So that planted the seed over having many hundreds of conversations over the course of 10 years, where I began to realize that many people that grew up in a corporate environment, even though there are tons of resources available about starting a business, great books written, Guy Kawasaki's Art of the Start and
Sure.
Seth Godin's Bootstrapper's Bible, but there was something that was not being said. And what I found was it was that combination of understanding the personal side of change, some of the specific fears that have to do with a societal and identity shift of going from corporate employee to entrepreneur, paired with some very pragmatic advice about how you actually begin to bridge that gap and start a business. So when I moved to Arizona, I met my husband who's from here, fell in love with him, and that's when I started Escape from Cubicle Nation, which is my blog, which later turned into a book and then really turned into a huge, very thriving business where I coach business owners about how to start a business. So that was kind of the professional side. I also have been a long-term martial artist, and I actually ran a nonprofit martial art organization for about 10 years in San Francisco. I did the Afro-Brazilian martial art of capoeira and lived in Brazil, led trips to Brazil, and then I trained mixed martial arts here in Arizona. So that's been another side of really what helps me understand mastery and fear and development and keeps me safe if I'm walking alone in a dark alley.
Well, you just gave me a good warning because there's a chance I'm going to bump into you at a conference next week, and I'm not going to make you angry. Okay.
That's right.
So I got that.
You have been warned.
I got that part straight. Now, Pam, you mentioned something that ever since you said it, the human side of business, and I know it's kind of unfortunate that we have to even use that term. Is it not that we have to point out that there is a human side of business?
Yeah, it's fascinating, and because I think often we we tend to categorize it in a way where it's kind of an afterthought. So even sometimes within large corporate environments, you have the business, which is, accounting, facts, and product development and everything else. And then you have human resources. Depending upon the company, sometimes it's just looked at as an afterthought, as this department that needs to be there just to make sure you don't get sued. I've had the great fortune of working with some amazing people that were extremely strategic human resources professionals who really look at what are the implications of our business decisions on the humans that work there. And when you think about any kind of workforce dynamic, if you have a great company, it's often because you have the leadership who understands how to engage and inspire the human beings that work there and does it very effectively and knows how to talk to people and bring out their best work and all those kind of things. But I find that we often like to separate that. And interestingly enough, on the entrepreneur journey, then individuals do the same, where they say, they really want to start a business, but then they have a fear and they feel like there's something wrong with them because they're a little bit afraid. Who wouldn't be afraid to give up six figures and benefits and retirement accounts, have your wife or your husband look at you and your little kids and, there's so much risk. It makes sense. You should be scared. I'd be worried about you if you weren't scared. So I like to pair it together. When you learn about business and you manage any of the human side of it while you're doing it, that's what makes you a more secure, stable human being, a more effective leader in the context you're talking about, but I think also makes you a more effective business person.
Well, I almost broke down and cried because after 30 years with a career where I worked for somebody else, I am that person. I am out there, running my own company and doing my own thing. And scared is a word that comes up, when the heads are on the pillow and my wife and I are talking in the dark. That does come up, and that is the human side of business. And I guess I'm kind of fortunate with the way I was raised in business by the people that employed me, that they always made the human part of it first. And when I went to companies for periods of time that I worked where humans were not considered part of the business, it always mystified me. So I'm glad to hear you say that. You're a pretty diverse person. You have a very diverse life right now from what I've seen. You're out there in the desert, if I recall. Your husband has a very special background too, is that not correct?
He does. My husband is full-blooded Navajo, so he's was raised in the Navajo reservation here in Arizona, and also is a business owner. So he has a construction business, and it's seemingly unlikely pairing, right? One would think where you have. I grew up in Marin County, California. This Anglo, person that's, in business, it's a business coach, and he was raised, as a medicine person and, as a business person doing construction. But it's really a wonderful connection. He teases me and he calls me a medicine woman, and I tease him and call him a life coach because we end up really having some good shared experience. And one of the things I appreciate the most about that is he really has a wonderful way of looking at the world. He's one of the most perseverant people that I've ever met. He has a really wonderful way. Here in Arizona, like many other parts of the country, we really had some challenges when the economy fell in the construction business. And I just have been amazed to watch the kind of diligence that he has. He gets up every day with a smile on his face, no matter how difficult things have been. And he's really taught me a lot about having a really clear vision of what it is that you want to do. And I think in his case, there are so few Native business owners that it really is also a mission that he really wants to see to be a leader for our kids and also a leader for other people of his nation and also of other Native nations across the U.S. So that's something I'm also real passionate about.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. It's a sidebar, but I had a conversation with an old friend who's been out in the Phoenix area for 25 years and is in the construction business. So I know exactly what you're talking about after that weekend conversation with him as he visited home here in the East Coast. So Pam, you are really the quintessential entrepreneur household from the standpoint of both of you are in business, and you came from a very corporate background. You came from what I consider one of the more premier corporate cities in America, that's San Francisco and the Silicon Valley. So now you write this book, and if we can show Pam's book up on the screen, that has really swept a lot of people into. And I love the cover shot on this, by the way. My daughter was just in an arcade the other day where she played whack-a-mole, and I can't help but thinking of whack-a-mole as I look at this cover. Tell me why you wrote this book. Tell me the thesis behind the book and what interested you in bringing this message out to the reader.
Yeah, well, the path of the book actually started with my blog because my blog was named Escape from Cubicle Nation, and I wrote it for a couple years. Actually, my publisher, Penguin Portfolio, approached me about doing the book after I had been writing. And the premise that has started since I started my blog is you were mentioning before that you've been in that corporate environment, you really understand what it's like. What I often found when I was having conversations with people is there was safe things to say and share in an environment, but you could imagine there was a bubble over people's head where they had these other thoughts like, oh my gosh, we have a merger, what's going to happen to my job?
Right.
Or I really want to leave, but I'm afraid to admit it, or I can't stand this place and I want to throw a red stapler at somebody, but I can't say that. And so part of what my intention was with the book is really just making it safe to talk about the real issues and concerns people have when they're in a corporate environment. And for some people, there can be certain parts about the structure of corporate life that can be really personally challenging if they are somebody who's really creative, who likes to be a little bit more self-directed. Now, I always want to stress in every interview that I do, I am absolutely not anti-corporate in any way. I loved my corporate job when I had it. I love the consulting that I did within corporations. The important thing to realize is that hating your job is not a business plan. So if somebody's sitting there seething in their cubicle and they want to leave, I want to paint, which I did with my book, a very realistic path about what are the steps that are involved, what are some of the risks. And the intention I had with Escape is that after reading the book, people would have all the information they needed in order to make an informed decision, whether to leave, whether to stay, and whether to go. Mm-hmm. And for certain people at a different point in their career, they may realize it and say, read it and say, wow, this is really not the time to go. I have a lot of work to do before I'm ready to actually just get up and quit my job. And for other people, they might have said, wow, I've been working on my side hustle for a while and I feel like I can really make a go of it, and they try to do it. So I like to talk about the reality of the journey. I use some humor in the book. I like to really address things like fears head on. And because I'm a coach, I give people some very specific advice for how they get through those experiences.
What was that term you just used? A side hustle?
A side hustle, yes,
Yeah.
That is a term.
Let's expand on that one a little bit. I love that. I love that term.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, the story about that. My best friend, her teenage daughter came to her when she was in high school, and she said, Mom, I signed up for a nail technician class, as in fingernails, painting fingernails.
Right,
and her
right.
mom's single mom, she always raised her to go to college. And she's like, why aren't you taking an AP English class? What's this nail technician stuff? And her daughter said, Mom, that's going to be my side hustle when I'm in college. So if I need to generate a little extra money, I can do nails. And so her mom went from thinking that she was going to not go to college to all of a sudden realizing she was a genius. So it's a term a lot of young folks use, which I've kind of adopted. I think I'm like #1 now in Google search for side hustle, right?
Yeah.
But the idea is I think the most reasonable way that can really mitigate your risk if you're thinking about starting your business is to do it on the side of your day job.
Sure.
Now, you want to make sure you're not violating employment contracts. You want to make sure you don't burn yourself out, that you never do the work during your work times and work premises. That's very important to maintain that ethical and legal contract you have with your employer. But let me tell you, I feel so much better when I'm working with somebody and I know that they have a product developed, they have been able to attract paying customers, they are beginning to get some traction on their idea. So when they do quit, they know that it's a reality. Because anybody has $1 billion business idea in their head. It's very, very different to have the capability and the proof that you can actually make it happen, which is why I always recommend a side hustle where possible.
Well, the side hustle term really is just a fabulous term. And I look at my own life, I have always had a side hustle. And I have found that the people that I've been attracted to the most in my life were other people that had side hustles, and even people who were in the C-suite that had a side hustle. I do comedy and believe it or not, ventriloquism, and I've been doing that my entire life. And I have met other executives who are stand-up comics or who do other types of side hustles, whether it's painting or playing a guitar or a saxophone or something. I find that people like that tend to be, or actually even construction on the side. I knew one C-suite person that built homes during the weekend. So I find these people are pretty well-rounded folk in that. The full-time corporate job isn't the most important thing in their life, and so therefore, and maybe you've sensed this too, it kind of it gives them a different place. Do you sense that?
Yeah, it definitely does. And I think having well-rounded interests are incredible. And also for those that are taking entrepreneurship seriously, it is a way to actually really begin to develop and test and try your business idea. Now, I have unfortunately been on the side as a consultant of of the table where I was looking across from somebody who had been an employee, a very loyal and dedicated employee for 20 or sometimes 25 years, where then they were let go with 20 minutes notice and had to pack their things and go. And I feel pretty adamant about it in today's work environment, which is inherently unstable, that you're really putting yourself at risk if you don't at least have an idea of what you would do to generate income if you get laid off.
Right.
And that getting laid off hits, I don't care who you are. I mean, sometimes folks in the C-suite nowadays have their head laying on the chopping block from the minute they get in that position because of the shareholder pressure with quarter by quarter earnings, and they really need to prove themselves, and things move so quickly. They may have a few more options maybe than somebody who's a mid-level manager, but I think we all need to always be thinking about how can we be highly employable. If something were to happen in our current position, then how could we quickly make a move if we need to in order to really keep things going? So I realize that it does take effort and energy, especially where people have families or other interests, or they like to sleep. So it doesn't mean that you have to be working from 8 o'clock at night till 2 in the morning every day. But really, where you can answer the question, if the worst case happened and I lost my job, what would I do in order to bring in the necessary amount of income till I found the next position? And if you don't have an answer to that question, I think you may be more at risk than you realize.
Well, I think sleep is highly overrated, number one. But number two, Pam, it's amazing. You're talking to me from where I'm from. 30 years in the newspaper business, and I don't know if you've heard, there's been some changes in that industry.
A few, just a few.
Yeah, so I find myself being one of the laid off folks who was actually the guy that ran the newspaper. But worked for a corporation, and you find yourself one day without a job. But I think that this notion of being able to take your side hustle and turn it into something real and fun is just, it's a subject that a lot of people are facing this reality. Now, unfortunately, Pam, we are at a point in time where we cut our show off, and we've only scratched the surface of this. So we're going to call this what I call a two-parter, because you really have a lot of content for us to discuss. So would you come back with us and do another segment right after this one and give our readers an opportunity to really digest this in two pieces?
Absolutely.
And I said readers, I really mean viewers, obviously.
Yeah.
You knew that, and they knew that.
That's the old newspaper guy talking,
I
right?
know. What can I tell you? It's my old main hustle coming back into my vernacular. But, Pam, we'd love to have you back, because I think your message of Cubicle Nation is one that is something that people are really going to be interested in. So before you go, though, let's give folks the signals, and let's help someone who might be watching this first segment who wants to dive right in. Where do they find Pam? Where do they find the book? Where do they find more information about you?
You can find all of it at escapefromcubiclenation.com, which is my main site where I have my contact information, all my social media profiles, and my book, which is right on the front page of the site.
Well, let's put the book up one more time on the screen here and remind folks, too, that you can get Escape from Cubicle Nation anywhere books are sold. Would that be correct?
That's
Pam?
correct.
All right, good. Well, Pam, with that, we're going to say goodbye to you for now, and we're going to have you back on the next episode of Leader Be Led, okay?
Great.
All right, super, thanks. Well, folks, that wraps up another episode of Leader Be Led. I'm sure you're going to come back for part 2 of our discussion with Pamela Slim about her book and about her ideas around the Escape from Cubicle Nation approach, as well as just really where we are today as a society and as an economy. So I can't wait to have the second part of this conversation. Now, you will notice below, wherever you're watching this episode, there's a place to comment, whether it's on YouTube, on our website, what have you. We'd love to have you comment. Most importantly, we'd love to have you share. We bring you content like Pamela Slim because we know how important it is to you in your leadership journey. And we're not only talking about the leaders of people, we're talking about people who are leading in entrepreneurship, leading in technology, leading in social media. So get the word out, share, and tell folks about us. With that, that wraps up another episode. My name is Al Gatler, and this is Lead or Be Led.